associated with this work now for since 2020. So they say when the student is ready, the master appears, and that's how I met Arul. Today, a lot of my career choices, the trajectory I'm on, the life that I lead, and who I have become is a lot of the work that has happened with this organization, with Shraddha, with Uma, and with Arul. I'm grateful, I'm deeply grateful. A lot of my coaching sessions also involves a lot of this work. So if you're a coach and if you're looking at depth, both in yourself and with your people, then I can truly say this is completely transformative. So without telling you more, I will let the experts do the needful. We have two of them today. Dr. Uma Narayanan, thank you for being here. She is a director and lead anchor at People First Consultants, which is a 30-year-old organization, largely into coaching services, leadership development, team transformation facilitation, organizational development, inner strengths, 360-degree profiling, and integral education interventions. Prior to this, Uma has worked for about 10 years in Ford in the learning and development space. She's also a doctorate in organizational behavior and positive psychology, a certified leadership and life coach, NLP certified trainer, and an MBTI administrator. And that's not all. I'm still catching my breath. She's the co-author of the Instrengths Insight Profiling Tool, a creative anchor, a co-author of the Insights card used for individual team profiling and strengths coaching. She is the key facilitator right now for coaching with depth, and her approach is like a mirror through a transformative space. She is an ardent learner. She's passionate about individual change and transformation that is positive, holistic, and aligned to one's unique self and rhythm. I'm so happy to welcome you, Uma. Our next speaker today is Shraddha. She's also a dear friend. I have grown to know her now for almost 5 years. She's a leadership, idea, and purpose coach and a design facilitator. She supports individuals and collectives to explore their core essence and bring that to action. She co-creates with them transformational journeys that support their authentic expression. She's been in HR functions across industries. She's compassionate and inspires successful shifts in people interventions like culture, performance, diversity and inclusion, and leadership development. She's also very attached to kids, and she likes to create programs that brings out the creative expressions. She's a Montessori teacher. She, apart from coaching, facilitating, consulting work, designs experiences for children, adult guides, and parents. She's a practitioner of Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism, a heartfulness practitioner, keeps herself grounded in inner work, and of course, she's also a coach. So welcome both of you, and I leave the stage to you so you can take over. Thank you so much.
Good evening. It's an honor for Shraddha and me to hold this space because it's with co-travelers in a journey, I believe. And I'm sure that our aspirations, we may use different methods and techniques to reach, but I believe that these aspirations and the sparks are in the essence, very, very connected. So it's always very, I think, mutually growing and fulfilling when we spend this 1 hour plus and a little bit more together. So take this as a journey, take this as a, what do I say, an experiential dip in on a Friday evening. Take it with a dash of curiosity. I would call this a childlike curiosity. So we all have a lot of our own experiences. We have a lot of our own spaces. But for today, we go into this space. So for a minute, I would even invite I know you are here as coaches, perhaps as individuals, perhaps. But for your exploration, begin to tune it inward first. And so the genesis of coaching with depth, I think, when this work of doing, which today is common parlance today, presence is already there into the ICF frameworks today. So today, a lot of the conversations around presence and being is establishing itself. But 12 years back, when we go in and tell organizations that, look, we're going to look at your leadership presence, they might use it in a different way than what we would look at it. So when I went and told people that we're looking at, what is this being space, they'll be like, so what does it do? The kind of questions like, how does it work? How does it do? So this research has been going on to say that what would holistic change and transformation look like if we were to, let's say, work with an individual or work with ourselves and want to change and shift something in ourselves. It is today definitely on the doing, which is our actions and behaviors, as well as the being space. So when we looked at this was a research that was done more than about 12 years back. Then Arul had a book that he did it, and then subsequently the work moved on to how do we start, giving some sort of a framework for people to go inward. And so that's how it began. And then I think two of them, Ram and Anu, Shraddha knows them very well. So both of them asked and said, how do we actually get trained on doing some of this? And that's how, this sort of space of coaching the being, or what we call coaching with depth, truly began. Today is a glimpse, a specific glimpse on the being. So, as I mentioned, a childlike curiosity, a little bit about experientially something. What I would also tell often is we wouldn't tell you what it is for you to understand. We'd rather invite you to go into the swimming pool, not figure out the temperature, not figure out the depth, not figure out all of those things, but go in, take a swim, come back, and then let's talk about it. So that's the space that we will do today. So just soak in joyfully, and if possible, soak in experientially. And the way I would differentiate experientially is, for example, as coaches, we hold a very nurturing and care space. And if I would ask all of us that today, right now, I understand care, I can exhibit care, but is the vibration of care flowing through the body right now? And that's what I mean by saying experientially, playfully explore each of our parts of being. So this is just the only monologue that I would do uh, about the space that we are creating right now. Let me just pause here. Shraddha, anything to add? All right, I get a signal. So we often do this when in our virtual spaces. You'll be surprised when we are co-creating on the go. I'll start with practice. So we said there are two aspects today. So let me just convince the mind a bit. So for a minute, choose to become present to this slide. Either connect to the dot or connect to the flower or connect to any element that you see here. And hold your awareness outside. Beneath the colors, beneath the structure of the picture, see if you can go into the flower. Again, these are intuitive. You don't have to ask yourself, how am I doing? What am I doing? But we simply receive and we wait for the clues. And if nothing comes, we just joyfully look at it and stay happy with it. So today we'll move into glimpsing experientially 8 rhythms. And then we'll do one grounding practice, which essentially connects us to our own being. So again, I'll just do the practice and then we'll find space later on to speak about it. At any point in time, if you have a pen and a paper in front of you, and if something comes in, feel free to note it down right after the practice. Or sometimes if it's really compelling, write it down even during the practice. Again, this is about tuning within and listening within. So we'll start with the practice. So sit comfortably. So this practice is called anchoring within the cave of the heart. Simply for us, it would be anchoring within. So take a minute, gently sit down, sit in a relaxed place. And become aware of your body, become aware of where you're sitting. And then tune in your awareness inward. A lot of our life is spent outward, focused outside, focused on things happening. And now gently ingather. It's like almost making a U-turn with your awareness. And gently begin to come within your body. And gently begin to tune into your breath as it is in the moment. Without modification, without evaluation. Is it fast? Is it slow? Simply becoming one with our inflow and outflow. Gently begin to feel the flow of breath in the body. Gently allow the mind to settle down and for you to come into this space of yourself and coaching. Observe gently the awareness slipping down from the forehead down to the face, down to the throat. What's the portion of the body you're keeping stiff? Gently release it. And begin to feel the body moving in and out with the breath. Feel the chest expanding and contracting. And for a minute now, I'm going to be quiet and simply be with your breath. Notice the flow naturally of where all the breath is flowing in the body. And every time a thought pops up or a memory or an image pops up, we simply step back into our breath. And notice exactly at one point you'll feel completely with your breath in the body. Then the minute the thoughts move forward, we don't follow the thought, we step back. Tune back to our breath. Breathe in peace and calm. With every breath, allow the breath to be a carrier of peace and calm, gently settling down and allowing you to be present to your body. Breath is a master practice. Breath is a healer. Breath is something that brings us to the present moment. And it anchors a deeper peace in the body. And there is a deeper anchoring that we'll go on now for. And so for this, if you feel called for, you can gently place your hand in the center of your chest. For a minute, just notice where your hand is, the sensations there. Observe your breath there. So relax into the breath. And then allow yourself to begin to travel inward. Inward intuitively into your own inner center. You may go past the skin, the tissues, the bones. Allow yourself to fall deeper and deeper, traveling inward. You may notice your physical heart. Connect for it for a few seconds. If not, you can straight sometimes go deeper into your own inner center. So allow yourself to go past the emotional layers into your inmost part of your being, into your own inner center, a space untouched by the surface, which is already silent, still and calm. Gently allow yourself to breathe there without expectations, simply soaking into our own inner center and receive whatever comes in today. It's a place where your own core nature is. It's a place of your deepest aspirations. It's also your own sacred space. So we feel the sacred presence. Gently open up to it. And so, like a flower that opens to the sun, gently allow your inner center to open up and receive whatever comes in that space. It could be an image, it could be a series of images, a color, a vibration, or it could be like a quality like peace, joy, calmness. Gently go into that image, go into the color, the vibration, and soak into it. Become that within the cave of your heart, and in most precious part of yourself. We open up to love, we open up to gratitude for the abundance of blessings. We open up to our deeper presence, a space of an inner knowing. And if you hold a divine presence, feel and touch the touch and the feeling and the hug of the divine. And gently allow this vibration to flow through your body. And stay connected throughout the session from this space. Then take your time, gently wrap up the practice in your own way. Receive whatever. If you feel called for, you can note down something. Or just hold that connection, that vibration, color, light, whatever you receive. It's a connection to your own being. And then take your time and gently connect back to your breath. Become aware of the surroundings around you. And then, whenever you're ready, gently open your eyes and conclude the practice. Some zero reaction, just let us know that here and back. So I'll just talk a little sentence while you're settling in. But open, I think we'll open the sharing a bit later, but keep your space. But you feel free to offer anything in the chat. You can receive it. Um, but this is one of the foundation practices. It connects to our being. Um, the space that we hold. We all know coaching space, coaching presence, coaching skills, coaching tools. So this allows us to come from our authentic space. And so there are actually 4 pieces in this bundle. So one is the breath, which is present moment. The other one is to stay connected in the body, which grounds us. The third one is to step back from thoughts, emotions into the breath. And the last one is anchoring some space deeper where there is a high vibration or there is a possibility of holding a space. And from that deeper anchoring, we may be better able to sort out thoughts, sort out emotions, work through them as another layer in front of us. So that's the whole practice of anchoring within the cave of the heart. And every time I do this, I offer this with utmost gratitude. So if you're in this practice, it's a very beautiful practice for yourself. You can do this even in milliseconds. You don't have to do it in full formula like this. And then if you're called for at some points, you feel, then these are also very beautiful spaces to hold for the beneficiary, teaching them these kind of things. So that's a little bit about the first part of us. So I'll just give it a pause here for a few seconds, and then we can frame shift to the other part of our presentation. So this is the inner practices. There is also this whole space that we talk about, which is how do we nurture the different rhythms of our being. So I go back to the story that I had when I went back to all of these people. They said, no, I want to look inward, but give me a tangible framework or a structure of the being. And that's how this whole space came to say, what are those 8 rhythms of the being? So just give me some sort of a thumbs up or a reaction somewhere just to let me know that you're fine and we can frame shift to the second part. Okay, awesome. So the frame that which we invite you to look at this is becoming aware of the 8 parts. And remember the example I gave you about care. Don't go from it from an understanding of the concept. Go more for tuning into, like the one we did with the flower, like the one we did the breath. You tune into that part of being within yourself. So it's almost like becoming friends, asking some parts will feel like your friends. Some parts will feel like, I know it, but I may not have a very intimate sense of it. Some parts will be like, oh no, I don't know if I have a sense of that. So become aware of the rhythms within you And also, you'll start understanding how these can get expressed in your actions and behaviors, and we'll talk about that. And then, primarily, the last space we already touched upon. So, this is how we would like to invite you to look at the rhythms of our being. So, some of you may have seen the video, but some of you may not have seen the video. So, I'll just do one small aspect of what we mean by this inner being doing space. So, this is water. I don't need to ask you that. But tune into this picture and either in the chat or unmute yourself and tell us what is the quality or what is it that you're feeling or sensing when you're connecting to this image of water. No need to think it, just share it. Either in the chat or unmute. Both are okay. Force, rush,
Constant flow.
constant flow, rhythm. Okay. Fast and rushed. All right. Now I
Very powerful.
very powerful. Let's just give it a second. Powerful, yeah. And now tune into this water. Again, notice the shift inside you as well as in the way you connect to the water. Still. Calm, steady. Yes.
Soothing.
Soothing. It's also very interesting, unshaken. So it's also interesting that you'll see a different vibration in the mountain. You connect to the mountain, you connect to the water, you actually see different qualities. Vibration is one form, but qualities. All right. Driving.
Vital energy. Vital energy.
Vital energy. Okay. Speed, force. For some people, does it allow you to lean into this energies? For some people, it'll be like, oh, might as well not skip this energy types. So just be aware of your own exciting. Right. So essentially, they're all water, but the state of the quality held within the water in its form and essence is something that is different. Adrenaline. And that's where this whole thing of being doing comes. So what we do, what we say, our actions and behaviors are the doing space, the skills, the experience, the conditioning of patterns of behaviors, etc. But beneath that lies the consciousness or lies the state, which comes through the intentionality, which comes through the quality held beneath in that water, for example, in our actions and behaviors. You'll see the same thing that we often give in our examples of feedback, when let's say constructive feedback is given, but one manager holds like this is not on, extremely critical, should have been caught even much before, and unexcusably is giving the feedback. The same feedback is given by the second manager, but the manager holds a certain, somewhere is able to understand the struggle of the individual and is holding space that, okay, somewhere this thing will get corrected or this will get, improved or whatever. Both will not be received the same way because of the state in which the person is giving the feedback. So whether we know this, we live this, it's part of us, but today, we are putting the spotlight on the being space. So simply the state or the quality with which we do an action, with which we express an action becomes the presence of the state within us. And that's the being space. And we may not articulate it, but we do feel presence. Sometimes we call it vibes, we call it, vibrations, we call it intents, etc. But this is the space of doing. So our presence, our actions, our behaviors. When you look at change and development also, it's both of these that begin to shift and that need to shift. So this is the inner quality. So today we're putting spotlight on this one. And the reason also why we believe in this is also often the source lives within, in the quieter spaces of the person we are guiding. When we hold space, the clarity comes within them. In one of the posts that I read recently, it's like, how can I stay present to you so that you can help yourself? It's because of the fundamental belief that the source lives within. So again, all these things, but we're just bringing this into a context for why are we looking at coaching the being and what are the spaces between us. And the other main reason is also what you put your attention on expands in your awareness. And so when people are stuck, they are able to articulate the behaviors that they are stuck in, but they are not often able to articulate the inner patterns of thinking, the inner struggles of energy, the push and pull they feel. We call this the warring of wills. The will that wants to get up at 5 a.m., but the will that also snoozes and sleeps. So, those kind of inner patterns is where, when we start putting into them and we put them into resourceful states, then that tends to grow in the person's awareness. So this is what we are inviting you to do. We'll go straight into it. There are 8 parts. So the first part is, so this is just letting you understand that there are 8 parts. It primarily belongs to any holistic model, which is obviously the physical form, the 3 emotion energy spaces, the vital energy that you mentioned. Then the mind spaces, the patterns of the mind, the thought patterning that lies beneath it. And then what we call the inner source or the deeper source. So in a nutshell, this is how the 8 parts come through. And now we'll move into a space where we can experientially go into each of them.
All right. So with that, sort of a context for today, we look at ourselves. So the invitation is that you either look at yourself in the coaching space as a coach, or you could look at this for your own self, and not as a coach, but maybe to coach your own self. So what would therefore a few things look like? So we can sense the rhythms of our being for ourselves and others. And it begins to help us. So as we go through these 8 different worlds, is another way to say it, that we connect with it deeply, like Uma said, from the inmost part of who we are, right? And we'll do that one by one. We also, it helps also practice self-awareness, that we become aware that, which part is sort of coming in the way, which part is naturally our strength. And when we create a space for someone else, can we hold those natural strengths already within us, but be open to what strengths they have, right? And how do we really access these strengths within us? How do we remind ourselves that this is something that we want to work on? We can move to the next one, Uma. So this slide is just for those who would have got an opportunity after registration to have a look at the email or go through the parts of being. This is the profiling tool. If yes, you would have received a light report, and this is how it would look like. If you've done this, then do have it open. It'll help you connect with yourself in that space a little better when we go through each and every part right now. If not, and if you feel called out for after the session, please do go and do the tool, because it begins to help, especially the inner view, that the diagram that you see on the right bottom. That really begins to give you ideas about where is that we feel lack, and where is it that we naturally hold resourcefulness right now. I mean, we naturally are already present and have already everything, but at least what is in our awareness right now, right? So it'll give you an idea. What we'll do now is do take a pen and paper. And if you don't have one, don't worry about getting one. But in your mind, set out the context. So what we'll do for the next, let's say 15 minutes at least, is dip into each and every part. And therefore, to experientially get connected to it, whether it's in your thought or in your feelings or in your body, it'll be great if we look at it from a contextual thing. It just makes, like a micro learning sort of a thing. So it makes it easier for us to grasp that in a context. So the context could either be, like I said, you as yourself, and there is maybe some situation or a relationship that you want to look at, or a quality of something that you really want to bring in, something that you're already working on. Or it could be a space that you want to create in a coaching session with another individual. And it is like this, when we were having a conversation about observation with another wonderful human being. She said that, observation has become a part of me. Everywhere I go, I observe, and it just naturally happens, right? Coaching space is something like that. Like when you begin to consciously hold a space, you will naturally hold it, whether it's in your personal life or in your work or with your clients. And that is sort of a true transformation to have, right? That you have a choice and consciousness to hold something within you which is already existing, but also in its purity. So what we do is dip into it. So there are 4 things to it. For each part that we go through, you may either put it as it is a strength of mine, or you may put it as I would like to develop it more in my life, or it is a strength of mine and I have it, but I want to express more of it, and maybe I don't get opportunity today to express more of it. So how do you consciously create those opportunities for you? Or it is not present right now, which means you're not really aware or accessing it right now. And how would you begin to do that? Right. So you can either, put it out in your paper as 4 quadrants and, put each part in the quadrant or a quality in a quadrant, or just, sit back and completely absorb the parts that you want to through this. Any of this is a choice depending on how you work or approach things. You can choose any of these 2 or figure out your own as well. So we begin with the first part. So because we are human beings and therefore there is this body, and this body is a gift by itself. So the first part really that we dip into is our parts of being and the physical part of being. And the physical part of being brings our awareness to that there is health that you need to take care of, and health in multiple ways that we look at health. But health as a quality doesn't mean health only of the physical body, but a health as a quality. And how do we look at that? And the other thing that the body naturally does is that it holds habits, or it gives us a certain stability. And which is why, and probably your experience today, that when you really did this grounding, practice with the breath, did it kind of bring you back to a certain state of stability? Did it bring you back to a space where you could restart again, right? So it really grounds us down for a new beginning. And that new beginning can be moment to moment, right? That when you're grounded, you're shifting your state is easy from one environment to another. Like somebody was traveling here, and then maybe you have a call as soon as you come back. But how do you quickly shift your state? And that's where the grounding or the stability of this part really begins to help us. Something really naturally that happens with the body is, let's say, breath, the heart pumping. So there are habits that already the body has. And how do we connect to the body those parts that are already holding some habits? This part also talks about some habits that we would have built over a period of time, unconsciously, consciously, but may not be helping us. So we also spotlight on them. That habits are habits, but what is our awareness of those habits, right? And then there are so to deep dive more into it, there is fitness. We also look at this part from how do we eat healthily? Do we have enough space for relaxation that we've taken? There is somewhere that I read that the moment that your sleep is sound and deeper and longer, everything else is taken care of. So how much are we allowing ourselves to relax? And while you can do that, probably when you're sleeping, physical relaxation also begins to help when we get into a space which is probably a chaos or probably an emotional state where we can't handle. But the moment we begin our, like dip into the breath and dip into the body, it is easier for us to just get into the space. It is just easier to relax. And in that relaxation, you welcome intuitions, you welcome the new, like Uma said in the practice, you welcome the new, you welcome intuitions, you welcome clarity. You also welcome courage to do the right things. That's when we are physically relaxed. So, when we have a lot of anxiety and all of that clients go through, we may want to hold this state within ourselves, which helps us begin to provide this space for them, or at least brings our awareness to this space. Anything else that you would like to add and then move on?
The true gift is that the grounding space, right? So you mentioned about doing it with clients. So even the fact that a lot of the times, even whether it's with me and a direct reportee of mine, or even with the coachee, for example, doing this practice together to just ground the person within itself is a huge benefit in a coaching space. So a lot of these practices don't have to be done only in isolation. They can actually be done in the practice. We don't have to tell the person, go and do something. We can actually do a mini thing of that practice in the coaching session. Okay. So again, take a minute, ask yourself, it's something that is a part of you, it's a friend of yours. It's something that I call some of these parts as leg in the accelerator, which means if I put the leg in the accelerator, maybe this part of being is available to me. But on its own, it's not something that is available all the time. But for those of you who probably, I mean, because you saw Arul's here in the participant panel, he's the person who has, like, if he decides a pattern, it'll stay steadily and consistently done, for example. So this is a rhythm that we are opening to, the rhythm of repetition and round. So frame shift to the second one. So this is the body, then we move into the emotion energy. And for a minute, just connect to the image. So you can see the image in the previous one, holding the quality. And then if you connect to this image, for example, then you start looking at what this image is about. And so this is what we call the senses, which means the way that we connect to the environment, the way that we make sense of things, the way we receive information, and the nourishment that our being has. So you can't see what I'm presenting. Can others see? Okay. So maybe I should toggle the screen. So we call this the rasa of life. So the simple gift of this part of being is that lightheartedness, the moment of enjoying and moving and soaking into something. So in a way, this part of being to me helps someone become fully present. The reason I asked you to connect to the flower completely, like if you give a child a particular object, the child goes into the object, for example. So soaking into something, seeing the joy of something, seeing the beauty of something. So the ease with which we nourish deeply our senses. Is the gift that this part of being gives. So, for example, if somebody has a lot of mechanical natures, or is very, very not serious, but very, very not able to hold themselves lightly, then this being begins to start opening. The nourishment from nature, the nourishment from the vastness of the sky. Some of them who get stuck with cyclical patterns of thinking, the simple practice we give them is connect to the sky, connect to the vastness, for example. And then immediately the mind from here moves upward. So simple practices where we allow them to experience this aspect of a certain joy, a fun, and a soaking in. So the gift of this is really being in the moment. There's also the domain of hooks and addictions and fears and anxiety. So loosening this, nourishing this in the right way. Food, or enjoying the food, enjoying entertainment that uplifts. Often when I have adolescents and teenagers, we ask them, do you get stuck with certain things? Yes. But does it uplift you? A lot of them actually say, no, it doesn't uplift. It actually drains us. So just becoming aware and open to richness of the senses, nourishment of it, and refining these allows the being to feel nourished. And the gift of this is to be truly present and soaking into something. So that is one of them. So again, take a minute. If you go into a room and see the ambience, if you go into nature and see the wow of it, if you start seeing the colors of the different shades of green in a tree, all of those are part of this being.
The next one might be very familiar. I think a lot of us do have it, and definitely a lot of us in corporate have it, which is the dynamic energy. While the gift of it is courage, and some of us, when we are in new spaces, we do want more of courage to come in, right? We do want more of power to come in. So while it might be generally present, but when we begin to do something new, when we are going through transitions, this part does take a toll. So how much ever you feel somebody has a great drive, in new spaces, in transitions, this is something that you might want to look at, right? And this part of it is, the gifts that it holds is really of power and perseverance, and to break through something, to really put something into action. And I don't know today if we get the time, but at some point in time, if we will share some of this with you, and if you have your reports, you will have all of this anyways. And if you look at how each part interacts with each other, right? It will also let you know that when there is a lot of dynamism, but maybe you have to uplift the power of the mind a little, which is maybe creative mind or an integrative mind, and then the implementation becomes easier. So a lot of us have a lot of ideas, but we don't know how to implement them, and that's where we look at this part as well. Or sometimes our grounding and our calming is so high, but on the other side, that we really need this part to, get ourselves up and get going to put that idea into implementation. So apart from power and perseverance, which are the gifts, the other qualities or aspects are really risk-taking, how energetic somebody is. Are we really success-driven, which means not only do we look at the process, but do we also have the ability to look at the result? Do we also have the ability to redefine success for what it is? But if you start something, are you committed to completion? And that is another thing that you might want to look at when you yourselves have started some initiatives, or when you working with your client, or working with others who would come from corporates. Look at that there are new initiatives that come through, and you begin it, but a lot of them fall flat because we've not taken it to its end or to its commitment. Now, there's another view to it, that do we really need to take it to the end? Maybe not, but success driven is something that really talks about commitment. What we also look at here is ambition, and how do we bring in confidence? Now, like Uma said, a lot of adolescents or even adults, or let's say parents, when they reach out to us and they say, we want to build confidence in our child. I'm like, at home, are you giving them the opportunity to share their views? Are you giving them the opportunity to express themselves fully? And if that opportunity is present, confidence is something that will naturally come. And therefore, sometimes I've also experienced with adolescents that, act confident is the word that they add before the word confidence. That so we were doing, let's say, preparing for a presentation, and how would children prepare for presentations that are coming through. So then one of them said that we act confidently, and I'm like, what do you mean by act confidently? I said, confidence is something that comes through. There is no acting confidently, right? But a lot of us get into this loop of acting confidently, and you will see a lot of leaders in your experience as well, that they're super confident, but the kind of initiatives or how they hold through a certain initiative does not, really blossom into what it's meant to be, right? And therefore, what is the true sense of confidence is something that you can look at when you look at dynamic energy, but it's really the energy of power. It's the energy of opening up. It's the energy of also widening to other spaces. So going back to those 4 aspects, figure out where is it that you want to put dynamic energy in. It can even be a quality. Let's say there is one quality that you want to seek more of, right? So you can even pick up that one quality and put it there for yourselves. If any of y'all, we don't have to, but if you connect to the chakra system, it's also around the navel chakra, or the core that we, if y'all go to the gym and how you work out, but that's really the energy there. And it does help when you build that energy to hold the will that we have. And we often talk about, the war of wills. So I have, through my power, wanting to push something, and somebody had something else to push in. But how do we really manage those, right? So the flip of this is a certain kind of dominance, a certain kind of aggression, and all these come in our way. So whenever we see something like this coming up in somebody, we so like when me and Uma really talk about limitations, we're not talking about limitations from a perspective of that it's good or bad, but you really talk about limitations from a perspective of that this energy is existing, but the way it's getting expressed is probably not the quality with which it should be expressed. And therefore, how do you help the client, help the coach to harness the energy in a more positive, progressive way for them? And that's how we look at this.
And often enough, I found, even for example, with the women leaders are talking about, sometimes, they have this part, but they haven't expressed it in their environment. So, which means it's not about those decisions they are not taking as a leader. It's not about the aspect of, planning and knowing what to do, but it is about just holding this space in a room, holding their own inner power in a room and expressing and asserting that sense of power. So that's what, when we say coaching the being, we're saying going down to this layer and looking at, is this accessed by them? Is this stuck for them? Or is this something that they need more in their lives? And so even reconnecting them back to their own sense of power, reconnecting and opening, a lot of the times we've actually given, like what Shraddha said, an exercise at breath in the navel just to open up this power so that they are comfortable with this force. They're comfortable with holding this force in balance with others. So the whole thing is about beginning to connect to the being, beginning to connect to the parts, seeing how they interplay between each other, whether they're helping each other, whether they're not helping each other, and whether it's coming in the context that they want to bring in their lives. At the time when I wanted stability, I think Deepa knows the course, but we actually went through a 5-week mandala course. And that was just because they made us do a single thing in the same time every day. So it wasn't like I was going for stability, but I got stability when I was working with that. So therefore, I was going for an experience of stability, and that will help me in other parts of my life. So that's how we are beginning to say that the being qualities, you can call these states, you can call these qualities, you can call these parts, they are already operating, but they're operating in a particular ratio. And so when we start uncovering this and saying, oh, hold on, what is the underlying, part which is enabling them? What is an underlying part that is holding them back? And you'll often see that this is what's happening. So we say it's common sense to corporate, but a lot of the people here actually may use this for getting things done, but may not hold it when it comes to, say, interpersonal relations, when they go into a boardroom holding this energy, for example. So this is how we work with the being and the doing layer together.
Uma, just one more thought before you move to the next one, because we are in this flow. That there can be these parts which are overplaying. So we feel that there are strengths, and they might rightly be so. But there's also that around the strengths or around the limitations that they're showing, we're unable to really see the true strengths that also exist apart from this. In a very simple example, let's say a child. So we had recently sort of a summer camp for children, but one child was very loud and the others always thought that he's too loud, so we don't want to go in his group. But what they really didn't see is the kind of perseverance that child had. And if there is anything that he wants to learn, and he wants to learn, he's very open to learning new things. So he wants to learn everything at every opportunity that is new to him to learn, he grabs that and he will sit on it. Come forth, a snack break might come or a dinner break might come or a sleep, that you have to sleep for the day, till he completes that and till he fully feels that he's mastered that, he won't move out of there. But nobody can see that skill of his. So, I mean, with children, and adult has to be around to kind of say that, look beyond that. And in that context, what I'm trying to say is that there are some strengths or some limitations that may overcome the true strength of that individual. And spotting that is also very joyful as a coach. You may offer them in a different way, but when you're able to spot that and see that, it really nourishes our own self in that space. Go ahead.
So moving to the third emotion energy. So stay with it. Allow yourself to just receive these things. Okay. So the first time that you hear it, you'll be like, how many am I seeing? What is seeing? The mind will start looking at it. But step back from that and connect to this particular thing. So there is the body. We saw that. There are 3 emotion energies. So we saw the senses, the dynamism or the power, and then the heart. So this is obviously correlating to the heart chakra. And this is truly when the parts of being begin to start connecting to the other, the space that we can hold for the other. So this is, in a way, if you look at it, the gift of this is warmth and care. You would have noticed that some people, being in their presence, you don't have to speak, you don't have to do, but just going into their space, interacting with them and coming out. There'll be an ease, there'll be an approachability, and there is an envelopedness that we feel in that space. That's because this part of being is open for them. And so this is the center that begins to connect to the other, hold warmth. The gift of this is just care and love. So it's that human to human, and not just our hearts and surface level connections, but let's say from the deeper space to a deeper space connection. I mean, a lot of movies in a very lighter way, and we say, no, I see you. So that's when the heart begins to start seeing someone else. So then the gift of this heart is actually wide-heartedness, People have this open a lot for people they care about, they know about, they have an affinity for. But the true power of this part of being is when it begins to open up wider and deeper, which means towards more and unconditionality, towards holding, no matter who, this space will be open. Anyone who comes into this space. And the gifts or the strengths that it shows up is sensitivity, compassion, giving, care. You'll see a lot of those people who truly see the earth as part of them and hold a care for them. That's a larger care. They'll talk to plants, they'll talk to animals. They see that as part of the whole human system. So all of this is care bonding. In organizations, it translates as inclusion, belongingness, feeling valued, appreciated, feeling a sense of going together. So that's how each of these parts go. Each of this have a health. A very funny way of looking at these parts of being is, let's say why do you have chai? Oh, because every morning I've always woken up and gotten chai, and I just want that cup of chai at 6 o'clock, and that's why chai. It's a habit I've created. That's the physical part of being. Also, chai, somebody who goes into all the, what is it called? The different varieties of tea, the brewing of tea, exact precision of making the chai. They'll say 3 minutes of brewing, put the chai after that. That's the senses, opening up the full rasa of how that ginger chai will look like, for example. Wrong example at this time of the evening, but anyway. Third one is branding, which is okay, this brand is good, or there's a standing to this, there is a power to this thing. For the green worlds and the green worlds, it'll just be like a cup chai with anyone, chatting with chai, chal jate hain, saath mein peete hain. So that's the whole motivation. So you'll start seeing the rhythms actually falling from the being to the doing spaces. So, Shraddha, given the time, we'll probably flip over, right? We'll just quickly give a sense of this. So you do this one, and then we'll just gloss over the other ones, because the minds are something very, very comfortable to us. It's the first 4 spaces that a lot of people struggle with here and there. But the mind is something that is more available to us, we think, but it's more available. So maybe we do this one, and then the others we'll kind of leave for individual explorations.
Yeah, we'll definitely do this one. So more from so now we're going into the domain of the mind, like Uma says, frame shift into the mind now. We've done body and energy, emotions and energy, and now we flip into the mind. There are 3 parts of the mind. Because of the time, we will work into this one, though, which is the data mind. And you can look into the imagery and see what you gather out of that. But it does look a little more sorted than others, right? So it is about facts. It is about the gift of data mind is truly observation, and to keep our observations neutral, what we begin to continuously focus on facts and being objective. But while we do that with a certain heart and a certain space that we've held. So it is not observation made for the sake of observation made, but it's observation made with a heart full of love, and also an intention of wherever they want to go to. They might not want to transform, and it is not ours to decide for them. But we do hold a possibility with love for whatever and their journey is to make. So when we come to data mind, we look at neutrality, which means we move away from judgment, we move away from interpretations, and also for us to notice that when we begin to talk to the coachee or to the beneficiary in front of us, we in our minds are constantly also thinking and trying to solution for them. Whether we like it or not, we naturally, kind of solution for things. But to really hold ourselves back, to not interpret, and to definitely make sure that our next question that's coming is not from the interpretation of what we've made of their situation, but it's really coming from a neutral space, or sometimes even an intuitive space. But hold that neutrality. There's the other parts apart from being neutral and holding the spaces is really precision, and how do we speak precisely. So there are various gifts of this part. How do we speak precisely? When we really say time estimation, and I was talking to my daughter today, we got late while coming back from her school because I delayed. But then she had just 5 minutes to go for a class of hers, and and she's a person who likes a little space before she gets into something else after she's coming in. And therefore, we said something that I've learned from Arul though, but he says, can we go into time and can we honor time and can we really flow? And then those 5 minutes start looking really bigger. They don't look like I have only 5 minutes, but they really look like what can I do the best in those 5 minutes? So really time estimation is a part, but how can we honor time? How can we really dip into this space? Speak precisely is another thing that most of us would want to look at, because that begins to shape, to also give a quality, a word to the quality that we are truly going through, right? Because we use terms which are very generic. We use depression in a very we may not really be going through a clinical depression, but we use it very loosely. And therefore, there are other words uh, of how we express ourselves. And we know the language these days that is used anyways. So how can we go back to a language that is really honoring, that holds human dignity? So these are some, attention to detail is another thing that this part gives us, and measurement, planning are some things that we look at. So when this part, if you look at the image also, is quite structured. So the flip side of this part is that if it's very structured, when we are to bring in change, and when we look at organization change or change and transformation, this is really a part that we want to look at, so that we get the individual or ourselves to the building blocks or the fundamental of something, and help them to create a space where those building blocks can actually come down and can rebuild itself in different ways, right? So where there is structure, we try and help figure out how flexibility can bring in more possibilities, and they don't have to really lose the structure in that sense. But there is a way to working with structure. So observation is something that we want to take away from this part in all our sessions and in life, the way we live life, because there's lots to learn from nature for sure.
So we'll do, so in the mind, we'll do it like, discriminant learning. So this is boundaried thinking. And the flip side I saw clearly in a leader, very, very, he was a plant head leader. We were having this profiling discussion with them, and he's self-aware, pretty much knows much about him, but we still showed all of these parts. And when we had a particular inquiry, this particular part was working very differently for him. And it turned out that the one question that we asked was, what is the permission that you need to give yourself to become a different kind of leader? Because he came with the feedback that I feel that I'm not this kind of leader, and I feel people are expecting me to be like this kind of leader. But he wasn't able to shift it. He knows it, he's able to understand it, but he's not able to shift it. And so when we came to this part, we talked about what is the permission that's holding you behind? And then it flipped for him. So that's, we're giving you examples, we're giving you all of these words, because something will click for you. And it'll allow you to go into this part of being. And the whole exercise today is just for you to glimpse. We're giving you all of these options to go into, to understand, to see that layer for what it is, because it influences thoughts, it influences actions, it influences behaviors, it influences the way people show up, and it also influences the way they are holding a pattern and what needs to shift for them to go to the next level. So we all know in coaching we do point A to point B, but then we look at both these layers. And so there's this equal doing, competencies, building, skilling, reskilling, all of those will be part of our coaching processes. But we also flip in and ask them what's happening beneath. We'll be coaching two people for communication, presentation, leadership. And one person, it was just about the hesitancy to show themselves up in a public domain. It's not about the structure, it's not about the presentation, it's not about the words, it's not about the timing. It's just about them becoming comfortable to show themselves up in a public space. So that's where we connect the being and the doing. So the rest of them is your exploration. And very easily, this is, if the data mind is the boundaried thinking, this is the fluid part of the mind. Truly, the gift of the fluid mind is how might I apply a vision? But often the creative mind is governed by fears, desires, and capabilities. So a lot of the creativity comes from the past, not from the future. So the gift of this is to future centered in ideation and innovation. So it shows up in open mind, out of the box. All of these are very familiar parts of us. But I don't know now, but earlier schools, education systems, even organizations don't tend to really show how to do these things for us. And then the third part of the mind is the one that steps back. We just simply call this the helicopter mind, the bigger picture that you often say. And the gifts of this is core essence, at the same time widening enough to hold multiple perspectives and synthesizing them into a core, very similar to the image. So this is about stepping back. The gift of this part is reflection, clarity. And the last one is the deeper selves. This is something that we leave with you. It's an aspiration. It's also grace. So it's that deeper space that opens up to our own sense of peace, sense of calm. The spaces that give us unshaken faith. One of the anchoring within the cave of the heart is to hold an opening to this space. So this is the 8 rhythms. And if I were to, so how does it help is to create spaces. So for example, I have seen a person, 20 minutes in the coaching conversation was toggling between this or that, this or that, this or that. The mind was going on, going on. I stopped at one point and I wrote down everything to a piece of paper that she said, floated back to her, asked her to observe her breath for a minute, and then look back at the list. So frame shift away from the mind, step back from the monkey mind, and then hold space. And then ask her, now look at all the themes again. And the being quieted down. Until then, she was anxious about the decision she has to make, the impression she has to make, the deck she has to go, that leader who's difficult. There were too many noises in the system. So this is how we can hold a space. And throughout the space, my holding was clarity. I didn't go into her confusion. Throughout the space, I held clarity. Questions were for clarity. Holding space was clarity. Literally writing down the words was for clarity. So that's how we hold a state that the other person may need. So this is in a nutshell, the way it shows up. So if you're looking at this for yourself, take a particular context in life and really see which is it that is flowing, which is it that's probably stuck. And this is the gift of each part of our being. Once there was a person, I think in South Africa, and they were going through this. He liked models, so it was nice. So he looked at this. And all I did in that session was introduce this to him, leave this framework with him, ask him specific questions for the context he was working. He himself internalized it. And then he started speaking, saying, looks like I thought the problem was me not understanding them. I think the problem is me, not listening in or not listening where they're coming from. For one person, I had this conversation for 30 minutes. I held this framework in my mind. That leader came and said, look, Ma, I think it's not working in this organization. It shifted, relocated from India to US, was working in that system. And somewhere he said, I don't understand. I usually get along with my bosses. He's moved in one more level higher up. And his higher up boss and him was having some difficulty. And he said, I don't understand where this is coming from. And in the end of the conversation, what really happened was he was so stuck up in his way of working, in his system of working. He needed to upgrade that the boss was probably coming more from here and inviting him to come more from here. He knows that a leader needs it, but he didn't know that was where the stuckness was coming from. And all I did was just ask him, is this what the boss is coming from? Is this where you're coming from? Is this where he's coming from? Is this where you're coming from? And then he himself adjusted. And when they get that solution, something will clarify for themselves. So this is examples of how you can use this in coaching spaces, etc., etc. So this is another thing that we leave you with a deck. This is a summary of all of the different parts that you can make use for yourself. So in summary, if we were to tell you what is coaching with depth and why we truly believe that this holds space for change and transformation, is where the coach fades into the background. And somewhere the individual we're guiding, coaching, holding space, their purpose, their inner being begins to show up. And so we listen, we tune in, we hold space, and we wait for that to come, or we nudge that to come. And in that space, the conversation gets led. And this is, to us, a way of looking at what does this coaching the being doing, coaching with depth mean. So this is a glimpse. We'll share resources and toolkits. So what you'll find is a toolkit that we'll give you. This toolkit has the access to some of the audio practices, the guided practices. It has spaces to hold on coaching the being, and then the access to our insight cards, access to our the app, then access to the profiling tool for those who have missed it. So this toolkit is there. We also are offering a retreat space. So Shraddha, if there's something you want to share more on that space. The retreat space allows us to truly go into multiple conscious tools. So it's both the inner preparedness of the coach, the space that is held at the coach. How do we help coach at the part of being layer? How do we help people connect to their core essence? And then how do you link that to the competencies minded? How do you link that to the reskilling needed? And how do you link that to manifestation? So this is the kind of space that this retreat will begin to hold. And so this is something that you can go deeper in. If this calls for you, if this is a space that really matters, then this is a one way of experiencing these. So that's our space. I'll just pause here for anything for Shraddha.
No, Ma, nothing at all. But just maybe bring attention to how you were talking about patterns, right? And how because of these patterns or that we have differently, sometimes underlying we are saying the same thing, but we're using a different language, each of us in our sharing, and we get caught at the language and miss really the crux that we are really on the same page, but it doesn't seem like, and which is exactly when nuances of these parts of being, or knowing that there are three parts of the mind working together, which we usually don't understand, but when we get into this, it begins to help us, and each experience is a joy, that when you discover that it's always a joy to feel that you're on the same page, right? But then it's not in a way showing us on the outside like that, and therefore going back to the purpose, going back to the integrative mind, and honestly, if we as a coaching community can really build a few of these parts a little more, which is really work on the integrative mind. We have the emotional care a lot, but go deeper into the emotional care space where emotions really don't um, it's not that they don't matter, but we drop them to just see that what really the self wants to express, and at that core hold the compassion. It's okay to let them go through a journey which is a little bit difficult for them for a while, but just hold that space of compassion, right? So emotional care, integrative mind, creative mind is something that we will give back to humanity. And I can tell you the amount I work with adolescents, that you can see the reflection of society in them, and it's still not that promising, and that's what we are giving them. So as coaches, if we can really work with the adult world, then maybe in few generations we see a different humanity coming up, and therefore that's the urge. It sounds big, but we can really play a part by just doing our small things.
So thank you, Uma and Shraddha, for this part. And let's open the floor for questions if there are any. Happy to, you can just raise your hand and we'll come to you. If there are any questions, if there's furthermore that you want to know about other stuff within the tools or the retreat.
Or even a sharing.
Or just a sharing, yes.
Expression.
There's something that shifts in spaces when sharing happens.
No? Any, okay, everyone's off video. I request you all to come on video and...
Rahul has unmuted, I guess.
Okay, yes, Rahul.
Yeah, the retreat was something very interesting. So I had opened the links. I will just check that out about the details. And yes, the entire session was something very, very different for me. When we speak about the being of a person, not from the aspect of a coach, there was something so when we were doing the first exercise when Uma was taking us through, I was having a mild distraction. Because to be very honest and open, I am in the decision-making phase of adopting a puppy. And I'm just thinking about so many things, like, if I have to go out, I have to take her with me. If I can't leave her at home. So many things were coming in. And sometimes I also felt this kind of a feeling on my forehead, a kind of tinge of ticklish kind of a feeling. So it's just mixed emotions going on, but it just helped me like stay there and in that moment. And I didn't actually react or respond to it. I was just like observing what was happening and in the sync of what Uma was saying. And yeah, that internally or kind of helped me connect with the deeper self part of the being in that moment. And yeah, that's something which I had wanted to share. Thank you.
And that's a gift for life, Rahul, for you, honestly. I,
I have to decide by tonight because they're moving the mom and the three puppies which are still there by tomorrow afternoon. So we like moving them tomorrow. So yeah, come tomorrow afternoon and collect them before 12.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Poonam says the session has ignited a lot of curiosity. We'll definitely deep dive.
Thank you, Uma and Shraddha. It was a beautiful session. What stood out for me was the way you both even used the vocabulary, a lot of new terms, and it kind of felt somewhat deep. And you were talking a lot about energy. I do feel something different. I don't know how to express it, but there was a lot of it could seem like uh, it was something that we already know, or very simple, but it feels very deep. And the certain things when you were expressing about limitations, the way you see it differently, the observation you do, and the creative mind, so all of that was, I don't know, I just feel different. It's kind of talking inside of me, I feel. So thank you for this experience. So my question is to, generally mindfulness and all of these things are, it needs a lot of patience and practice. So a new client comes in. How do we, is there any way that you consciously employ to help them to be in tune with us for a little while until they catch this?
I have a few thoughts, but Shraddha, anything you want to start with? So, the first embodiment, and so thank you for sharing, because it's exactly what the spaces that we love to hold in this. So if you have had that deeper inquiry and connect within, then that's true. Like you said, it seems simple, it seems commonsensical. The fact is the being exists. We're just putting the spotlight. It exists in totality. We have a sense of a person. Like in the duration that you've met me, if I ask you what are the qualities that you felt through my interaction with you, you will have a list of qualities. So it's just that we are holding it for a, I call this like nut and bolt model of working with an understanding where the stuckness is. So yes, so thank you for that sharing. To your question, first space is what we hold on. Have you felt that sometimes when you enter a room or you've entered a space, okay, you immediately feel a sense of calm, for example? Or you feel that you feel it either in, let's say, I'm not saying only religious spaces have it, but even nature spaces have it. Or let's say you go into a particular person's office, you feel a different vibe. You go to another person's office, you feel a different vibe. So first space of practice and would be we holding a space that we wish to hold. Now, for example, if you that's where your core essence comes. So you hold a space for the conversation first, because then what happens? They experience it even if they're not practicing it. This is the first one. Second one is you can go where they are starting with. For example, if their propensity is more on the mind, okay, then give them small mind tools. Like, for example, a person said, I have a lot of thoughts, I'm not able to settle, too many things are happening. Okay, be it an adult or a young adult. And I told them, I gave them one practice to say that, look, the next 30 days or something like that, keep your awareness outside. Now, is it mindfulness in a way? Yes, but mindfulness may not be in the most area that they're struggling with, for example. If a person is working with patients but is not able to work with patients, and when maybe their language is action, which means their dynamism is open, which means give them something in action. So I'll say while cooking, hold your breath. While walking, take your breath. Maybe they won't do the 5 a.m. 30-minute meditation. That's perfectly fine. So go with the language of the person, come from where they are. In the coaching spaces, do your breath exercise for a minute. First 2 times they may look at us weirdly or they might say nothing's happening. But believe me, when you hold the space, and when you're holding that space, like what Rahul was saying, initially it will happen, settle down, something like that. The aspiration of the individual and the aspiration you're holding will allow them to experience it. So we allow that patient space. So these are some methods that you can use.
There's also just to add, sorry, Annie, before you, I mean, it's the same trail of thought, so I'll continue that. Is that that when to do one is patience, and when to do will intuitively come to you. They will show you. You will have to be just open to see when they're when that's happening. Um, and you will get that sense, so there will be a space that they will give you to do that. And if, like Uma says, if you're already holding that space, we will know when that space is opening up, that slight opening, and we give it an experimental trial, uh, and it will work at that point. And there will also be a point where they don't know where to go from there, right? That is also a space when you can open up the client to something like this, because they are in a state where they're really looking for a different tool or for something else or a different way to look at things, right? Then they don't have the perspective at that point in time, and the only thing that can help them is the tool. So there will be openings, and you will intuitively know when to go in to have this tool as well.
So if I may add, sorry, as someone who's used this for my coaching sessions, I usually send them as a pre-work, the instruments profiling tool. I have sent them as a pre-work, and then we do a session with the people, first consultants together, to explain what parts of their being is helping, what is enabling, what is limiting, and further when the sessions begin, it's not during the sessions that I have used, but it's like a pre-coaching. But then it comes more and more into the being of understanding that this is what's happening with me and this part I need to work on more. So then we decide to do certain sadhana, certain practice for that area. So that's how I have used it.
So, and the last thing I'll say for this, because it's a common question for across many inquiries, you can use directly the tool as what Priya mentioned. And ideally, hopefully, we want people to get certified, use it and take it forward because it is existing. It is definitely in the part of the who we are. One is that. The other way I do this when people don't want all this model and stuff like that, I will do it through the cards, which is basically just 60 inner strengths. So they don't know they're going into parts of being. They don't really need to know the names. They just go into the cards and something in that quality will touch them. That 60 strengths I put in a page that is available in the deck, which we'll share. So that's a space I go to them. So without knowing, you're asking them to go within, but then they won't know that it is definitely a being and stuff like that. So when you hold these spaces, slowly, they'll start holding those spaces. So the experiment is on us, unfortunately. It's like life, no? This is something that we do by who we are, and something shifts.
So Shraddha, I think, has a next question. She has her hand raised.
Yes, thanks, Priya. Excellent session, Uma and Shraddha. Actually, I also took the test and I could relate to what all you were explaining. And it's just one question, like when I took the test on certain parameters, it was showing the strength as well as the lack part, that middle line. So that was a little like, I could not get it, like either it could be a strength or you could be lacking in that. But how does it happen that it shows like both sides? And second question is that how does it show up when you are interacting with a coachee who has a strength vis-a-vis you're lacking on that parameter? So how does it show up? I mean, does it make any we need to be like like aware of it, or if it strikes us, how do we tackle that?
I'm just waiting. Shall I?
I can share a couple of things.
Right.
Yeah.
So for example, when you look at the tool and when you say, so the inner view is what you're looking at. And Shraddha, later we could, any one of us, Uma or I, if you reach out, we could have a session for you to understand it better. But in
Okay.
gist, the inner view is so in a strength, we are not all resourceful. There are parts of us that still might, like you saw the qualities, right? Different qualities that each part of being holds. And maybe one or two qualities is where you need some attention to, and maybe that's showing up as a lack. But then there are others which show up as a resource. So that is one way to look at the inner view. And it's also, inner view is a journey. Even if it's showing as a strength, if you've seen, the graph doesn't really end. It leaves you open, because that's the journey that you're making on either side. Either you're coming from here to neutral space and increasing your strength, or as much as in our happy spaces we use the strength, maybe in a spaces which are challenging, it becomes a limitation as well. So there are multiple ways to look at it, but it needs a conversation, which is why we suggested that if at all you want have to deep dive a little more, do connect with us. To the second thing, that if it is not your strength, but it is something that the coach is showing, we become aware of that, right? Uh, and like Arul always says, and I truly believe, and I think between me and Uma, we've gained from each other in this way, is that if one is your strength and one is not, then you just happily absorb the strength in its truest, purest way to you. But the way to work with them is you go with your strengths, because you will hold space there. So hold space there and be open. Uh, and and there is a very thin line, right? As a coach, you're anyways not solutioning for them. So even if you don't have that, you do have a tool to question or to guide them in that direction, and that's completely all right. So as long as there is neutrality, as long as there is the right kind of questioning that we have, or a guidance that we have. Sometimes it can just be dropping a seed with one or two words, and that can be an experiment, that you don't suggest something to them, but just drop in a seed that, maybe this will work. Maybe, something of that sort, where they get some sort of direction to move, and then we check back on that direction. We check back on what happened when they move through it. So it's completely all right not to have it, but it's a two-way street. So we do gain.
Yeah. Thanks, Shraddha. Anyway, I knew that Shraddha talking to Shraddha will clear everything.
All right, thank you.
Idea is to begin to start noticing both these layers in us. Sorry, Smita, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say something. The thing was that if you are also have a lack in yourself, and the coachee also is lacking in that. So how do you go about it?
You guide both of them, yourself and them.
I did the test as well. So I could see what is my strengths and where I'm lacking. So that's why the question came. So imagine that I'm also lacking on something and the coach is also lacking in something. Then how do you go about it?
I'll share a sentence. Shraddha, sorry, just checking the Shraddha.
Yeah.
I was just, Harsha wanted to leave and he had a question. So
Question hierarchy.
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Yeah.
No, Harsha is not the person.
Yeah.
But maybe Priya can give the contact. We'll circle back on that question, because there is sort of an hierarchy.
Yeah.
So Smita, first things we talk about the being is the being exists.
Yeah.
Not like I'm going to take from somewhere else, pakad ke, you're not going to put inside yourself.
Definitely.
About how much is accessible and available to us at any given point in time. So there are two parts. One, the moment to moment, can I shift into a resourceful state? That's possible for us. It may not be a long-standing state. Matlab, I keep an interest, I'll move into it. Maybe after that, I'll go back and roll back on circumstances. So one way is that we begin to start teasing that part of being and start holding, either through, like what Shraddha said, osmosis, borrowing from environments and spaces that have that.
Yeah.
Okay. All I need to do is, for example, I spend 2 hours with a person who actually is passionately following waste management. And in the 2 hours in her space of waste management, I came out with a much more deeper love for Earth. So osmosis. The other aspect is practices, like what Priya was mentioning. In the deep dive report also, there are practices for each of these parts. How do we open that part a little bit more for us? So while you're giving the beneficiary a practice, you also hold the practice. What Shraddha was saying, hold the practice. And that will open up in this space. And then over a period of time, it will take time for these spaces. No, that's why sometimes these patterns are quite etched in us. The middle part of your profiling talks about your way of working with your emotional energy layers, your way of working with the mind. That pretty much becomes a tendency. So then we actually have to begin to start consciously shifting the tendency. For some people, I have to come from data before I open up to creativity. But creativity by nature needs to open up even without data. But they're not able to make that shift. So they struggle with that shift, for example. So some, and then I see between couples, the first thing they say is, if I look at the spouse's graph and my graph, their love language will be different if the dynamic energy is more in one than the emotional care, and for the other person, emotional care is more than the dynamism. Their love language will be different. One person's love language will be through actions. The other person's love language is spending time. So the very fact that they come from each spaces allows that, they see that I'm doing so much, but the person says, that's not doing for me because I have this. So these are the ways that people start balancing each other, noticing each other. So you start opening up even them to observe those parts of being in others. Long answer, but
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. It was insightful. Yeah.
But there's also another experiment that Aru is actively running, and I think it's been happening for quite a few years, which is Delight Matrix. And that also begins to give you, all the practices in a different way, which it does take a little time. Parts of being you can still figure out it. I mean, at least a little bit of gift. We will do that in the retreat, but Delight Matrix also gives you direct practices in combination of the parts of being, how one part of being works on the other, and how the gift of one part of being can actually share with another part of being that maybe you're also, so you also come from your strengths and then look at them. But there are multiple ways to kind of work through this. And practice is one of the ways. And some people who strongly believe, they also, who can really hold that there is already everything that I need to have is there. They can very naturally bring up that part, whether it's there expressed for years, for not, all that doesn't matter. But for some, it is practice. And we honor our rhythm to each of these parts.
And the idea is not to downplay strength. Some people whose emotions are very, very open, they get hurt somewhere and they close it. And then it looks like their heart is not open. They'll say, no, I don't feel, but actually their heart is there. So then in deeper inquiry, they'll actually reconnect back to a part of their heart. And they'll be permitted to open it up to and do the ways. And for them, we also say, don't close your heart out. Learn to come out with the upset. You'll be vulnerable, but you step out. Vulnerable and step out. And we also give them equally a dose of, for example, dynamic energy. So never at the expense of falling down. And also we give them a dose of the data mind, which is objectivity. Like not do too many mood oscillations, but hold a certain objectivity to what you're feeling. So that's how we balance the strengths. And that's how the being actually also talks to each other. We actually talk like that, but now we have a language.
And also things are beyond this. This is like we keep saying that these are entry points. And then there is more, which you will figure out yourself, each one to its own of sorts, the moment you connect with this.
So in summary,
in case you want to understand the report in more depth, can we have a one-on-one conversation as well? Sure. Yes.
It's something that we offer.
Yeah, okay.
So I think a mail will be sent today, whenever post our session, with further details, some tools. So where you can reach out. I think that will give you all the things that you're looking for.
We really want to aspire to offer this to as many people as we can in spaces of leaders, coaches, parents, educators, because it is true. It is part of who we are, and it is a legitimate framework. So our aspiration is actually to just share this work, get this work out, and for people to begin to start using this in their own, integrate it into their own practices. So that's the aspiration we hold.
So are we, do we have any more sharing or questions from anyone? If not, then I think we're in a good place to stop. Thank you, Uma. Thank you, Shraddha. Thank you, participants, for staying on for, I think, more than 1.5 hours. Thank you for the patience, and more details are going to reach your inbox. So the retreat, we're looking forward to your participation and getting deeper with respect to the tool and lots more. Thank you so much.